Officer Derek Thorne looked at the 10-year-old girl standing by the lemonade stand and saw no other child. He saw a target. In Derek's mind, the badge on his chest was more than just a symbol of the law. It was power. It was the license to decide who could be left alone, who should be afraid, and who needed to be taught a lesson. Oak Creek is the kind of town where you pay a lot of money for peace and quiet. The grass is always mowed so tightly that not a single blade dares to grow out of place. The white hedges are eerily clean. The neighbors' smiles are polite, but never truly warm. This is a place where everything has to be in its proper place. And Derek Thorne sees himself as the guardian of that order. He had been a police officer for almost 20 years. Not 20 years of service, 20 years of hunting. Derek wasn't patrolling to protect. He was patrolling to find things that didn't belong here. Strange faces, irregular behavior, and especially vulnerable people. That afternoon, on the corner of Elm and Sycamore Streets, Derek saw a small folding table. A pitcher of lemonade was sweating in the sun. A handwritten cardboard sign read, $1, support violin lessons. Beside the table sat a thin, dark-skinned girl with neatly braided hair. She stood very straight, her hands clasped at her sides, as if she had been taught politeness from a very young age. 10 years old. No shouting, no mischief, no troublemaking. But Derek didn't see that. He looked at her skin color first. Then he looked at the green grass behind her. And in his mind, a decision was made, quick, cold, and prejudiced. At the end of the street, a woman was hurrying towards them. Derek caught sight of her, and a slight smirk appeared on his face. A mother, probably a single mother, probably will cry, probably will be frightened when he raises his voice. Derek believed that a few shouts and a little intimidation would bring everything back to normal. He had no idea. That woman wasn't the type to be afraid. And little did he know that, the moment he stepped out of the patrol car, his life began to count down. Oak Creek wasn't a place where trouble usually happened. At least, that's what everyone believed. Here, people don't yell in the street. They don't argue in front of their neighbors. Everything is contained in suggestion letters, disapproving glances, and whispered complaints behind closed doors. Oak Creek is peaceful because the things that were not peaceful were long ago pushed out. Derek Thorne understood that better than anyone. He grew up not far from here. And, from the day he donned his Oak Creek police uniform, Derek believed it was his duty to keep the place up to standard. He dislikes surprises. He dislikes things that feel out of place. And he especially dislikes people who make him wonder, does this person truly belong here? In Derek's eyes, power doesn't come from the law. It comes from the fear of others. He liked the way people lowered their voices when they saw the patrol car. He liked the way they hastily offered explanations, even before being asked. He liked the feeling of being able to stand still, and others automatically backing away. That's what made Derek feel great in a life where he had always felt insignificant. The patrol car slowed to a stop at the side of the road. The engine remained running, a silent warning. Derek wasn't in a hurry to get out. He sat there for a few seconds, observing the little girl at the lemonade stand. The way she stood, the way she looked around, but didn't dare look directly at the police car. A child who is used to being cautious. Derek looked at the sign that read, "Support Violin Lessons," and snorted. In his head, the story was simple. This shouldn't be here. It's not because it's dangerous. It's because it shatters the image that Oak Creek has always wanted to maintain. Derek opened the car door. The dry, metallic sound echoed in the quiet space. He stepped down, adjusted his belt, his hand deliberately lingering near the holster longer than necessary. A familiar gesture, a message that needed no words. As Derek approached, the little girl startled and straightened up. Her hands tightened slightly around the hem of her dress. And in that moment, before saying a word, Derek decided he wouldn't treat her like a child. He will treat the girl as a problem that needs to be eliminated. And that's when things started to go wrong, irreversibly. Her name is Maya Vance. She is 10 years old. Maya didn't set up the lemonade stand out of mischief, not to attract attention, and certainly not because she thought she was doing something wrong. Maya did it for a violin. Music is the only place where Maya feels she can breathe. When the bow touches the strings, the noisy world outside recedes. No more scrutinizing gazes. No more feeling the need to constantly be on guard. Only the slow, gentle notes can speak for what a child doesn't yet know how to express in words. Maya's mother, Elena Vance, always taught her a very simple lesson. If you want something, you must learn to take responsibility for it. Elena traveled frequently for work. Her job meant Maya had to get used to quiet evenings, meals, just the two of them, and a greater longing for her mother than other children. Maya didn't fully understand her mother's work. She only knew that every time her mother left home, she hugged her very tightly, and every time her mother returned, her eyes always seemed to have wandered to a very distant place. Maya wanted to surprise her mother. She wanted to pay for her next violin semester herself. She wanted her mother to know that the lessons about independence hadn't been forgotten. So, that afternoon, Maya set up a small folding table in front of her house. She placed a pitcher of lemonade on it. She wrote a sign in the neatest handwriting she could. $1. Support violin lessons. Just minutes before the police car arrived, a silver sedan pulled up. An elderly neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, opened her car door and bought a glass of water. She smiled kindly and gently pinched Maya's cheek. "You're such a good girl. Your mother raised you very well." Maya smiled brightly. She carefully folded the $1 bill and placed it in a small, lockable metal box. In that moment, the world was still a safe place. But that joy only lasted a few minutes. From the end of the street, the patrol car slowly turned in, its engine humming softly, as if it were an unnecessary warning. Maya heard the car and turned around. Her heart skipped a beat. "I don't know why, but I have a feeling that my peaceful afternoon is about to end." The patrol car stopped at the side of the road. The engine was still running. The window rolled down slowly, just enough for Maya to see the face of the man sitting inside. He didn't smile. He didn't nod in greeting. He didn't ask how she was. His gaze swept across the table, the cardboard sign, and then lingered on Maya longer than necessary. "Hey," his voice rang out, dry and sharp. "Do you have a sales license?" Maya was startled. She jumped to her feet, instinctively, as if by a long-learned reflex. She gently adjusted the hem of her dress with both hands. I only sell lemonade," Maya said softly. "To learn the violin." The car door swung open. Officer Derek Thorne stepped out, his large frame blocking out some of the sunlight. He adjusted his belt, his hand slowly gliding over the holster, an unnecessary, yet deliberate gesture. A silent message. "I have the right. Oak Creek City Law," Derek said, his voice even and monotonous, as if reciting from memory. Section 44B. No unlicensed trading on public property. Maya swallowed. "But I was just standing in front of my house." Derek tilted his head, glancing at the green lawn behind her. His eyes showed disbelief. He refused to accept it. "You said it's your house?" His voice lowered, carrying something heavier than the question itself. Yes, Maya said, pointing to the house behind her. "House number 404. Derek let out a dry, wet, and uncomfortable laugh. "Are you sure? Or are you waiting for the homeowner to come home so you can disappear?" Maya's eyes widened. "No, my mother bought that house. I live there." "Don't you dare raise your voice at me," Derek snapped. His tone suddenly changed, becoming impatient. Maya didn't realize she had spoken louder because she was scared. She just felt her heart pounding and her throat dry up. "I didn't do anything wrong," Maya whispered. "I was just selling lemonade." Derek looked at the support violin lessons sign as if it were a piece of trash. In his mind, this was no longer a rule. It's about who's allowed to exist here. He took another step, standing very close. Too close for a child. "Clean it up," Derek said coldly. "Right now." Maya looked at the table. She looked at the lemonade pitcher. She looked at the tiny metal box containing her piano lesson money. "Please. Let me sell just a little more," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm almost got enough money." Derek didn't answer. He just held out his hand. And it was at that very moment, when the man's hand reached out towards the small table, that everything began to cross the line into irreversible chaos. Derek Thorne did not respond to Maya's pleas. He did not argue. He did not back down. Instead, Derek reached out and slammed the table down. It wasn't a gentle push. It was a furious shove, as if he wanted to extinguish something that was bothering him. The folding table tipped over. The lemonade pitcher tipped over, the sticky yellow liquid splashing onto the pavement and Maya's little shoes. The glass pitcher fell, shattering into many sharp, cold shards. Coins and banknotes scattered and rolled across the scorching hot asphalt. Maya stood frozen for a second, then burst into tears. "What are you doing?" she cried, her voice breaking. Derek stared at the rubble before him with a cold, detached gaze. "The sanitary risk," he said, as if he'd just completed a mission. "It's been eliminated." Maya knelt down, frantically picking up the money. Her hands were shaking so much she couldn't hold any of the bills steady. "A piece of glass cut my finger." Bright red blood gushed out, dripping onto the pavement and mixing with the spreading lemon juice stain. Maya gasped, feeling both pain and fear. "Lemonade. My money. Clean up this mess and get out of here," Derek said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Before I take you to the station for loitering and vandalism." Maya looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'll tell my mother. That's all." And Derek's face darkened. What he hated most was the reminder that his power wasn't absolute. He hated the thought of someone being higher than him. Derek bent down and gripped Maya's arm tightly. His fingers dug deep into her delicate skin. "You're not going anywhere," he growled. "Get in the car." "Let go of me," Maya screamed. "You're hurting me." Derek yanked Maya toward the patrol car. Her small legs wobbled, unable to keep up. Then, crash. Maya's small body slammed against the back door of the police car. The metallic clang shattered the quiet of the street. Maya screamed and cried. "Mommy!" Derek pulled out the handcuffs. The metal gleamed in the sunlight. He was actually preparing to handcuff a 10-year-old child. At the surrounding windows, the curtains swayed gently. The neighbors began to look out. But Derek didn't care. He leaned down, his voice low and venomous. "Shut up. Your mother can't save you." And it was at that very moment, as Maya's cries echoed through Oak Creek, that another sound, powerful and unusual, began to tear through the quiet atmosphere. Maya's cries, shrill and panicked, echoed against the silent walls of Oak Creek. It was the kind of sound adults didn't want to hear, because it forced them to confront what was happening. From the house across the street, a door opened. Mr. Henderson, a middle-aged man, stepped out onto the porch, his voice filled with anxiety. "Hey, officer," he said, trying to remain calm. "She's just a child. She's Elena's daughter. Let her go." Derek spun around. His gaze shot straight at the man as a threat. "Get inside immediately," Derek yelled. "Do you want to be charged with obstructing a law enforcement officer?" Mr. Henderson stood still. He wasn't a coward, but he also understood the price of confronting an out-of-control officer. Derek turned back to Maya. He tightened his grip on her arm even more. "This girl isn't cooperating," Derek said loudly, deliberately making sure everyone around could hear. "She's a suspect." Now, the suspect. A heavy word was placed on the shoulders of a 10-year-old child, simply for daring to stand there, simply for daring to exist. Maya gasped for breath. Her cheek pressed against the hot metal of the police car. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the dust and lingering traces of lemon juice. "Mom!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "Mom, I'm scared!" Derek leaned down, whispering into Maya's ear. His voice was low and cold, just loud enough for her to hear. "Shut up. Your mother can't do anything." Derek's handcuffs were unlocked, one side ready to lock onto his tiny wrist. The metal gleamed in the sunlight like a cruel declaration. At the surrounding windows, many people had started pulling out their phones. The cameras shook slightly because the hands of the people filming were trembling. No one spoke loudly anymore. No one dared to take another step. Oak Creek, a place that prides itself on its orderliness. is witnessing a child being pinned down by the very person tasked with protecting it. And at that very moment, as the handcuffs were about to close on Maya's wrists, a sudden engine roared from the end of the street, a sound not belonging to this neighborhood. Not the sound of a family car, not the familiar sound of a patrol car. A loud, sharp sound, so loud that even Derek stopped in his tracks, and Oak Creek was about to understand that. There were powers that even a badge of honor could not threaten. The roar of the engine grew closer and closer. It was unlike any car that usually appeared in Oak Creek. A black SUV, low slung over its shoulder, with tinted windows, sped through the final bend in the street. No siren, no lights, but its speed, and the way it braked sharply in front of Derek's patrol car, made it clear to everyone this wasn't an ordinary vehicle. The SUV stopped diagonally in front of the police car, completely blocking the road. The car door swung open even before the wheels had come to a complete stop. Derek looked up, his face contorted with discomfort. He braced himself for a panicked mother. Tears, screams, familiar pleas. But the person who got out of the car showed no signs of panic. The woman, dressed in a neat charcoal gray suit and low-heeled shoes, walked with a steady gait. Her hair was neatly styled in a bun. Dark sunglasses covered half her face, but her posture betrayed her composure. Absolute calmness. She didn't run. She didn't shout her son's name. She didn't wave her arms or point. She simply walked straight towards Derek, like someone who was all too familiar with venturing into dangerous situations. When she took off her sunglasses, her eyes revealed a coldness and focus so intense that some neighbors unconsciously held their breath. "Take your hands off my child." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't tremble, but it carried a kind of power that made the air around him seem to freeze. Maya looked up. "Mom?" Her voice cracked with both fear and relief. Derek frowned. He didn't like the way this woman spoke to him. Not fearful, not obsequious. "Step back," Derek yelled. "This is a police situation. Interfering is illegal." The woman stopped a few meters away. She didn't move back. She didn't move forward either. "Release the girl," she repeated, more slowly and clearly. "Right now." Derek tightened his grip on Maya's hand, as if to assert his dominance. "She was arrested for breaking the law and resisting arrest," he snarled. "Who are you?" The woman looked down at Maya first. "Are you all right, my love?" He pushed the table. "And it hurt me." Maya sobbed. The woman looked up at Derek. Her gaze was no longer just that of a worried mother. It had become the gaze of someone assessing a threat. "Listen carefully," she said. "You're holding a child captive on his property, without any justification. I'm giving you one last chance." Derek laughed contemptuously. "Opportunity? Do you think that just because you're well-dressed and drive a fancy car, you have the right to order me around?" Derek reached for the taser on his belt. A small click sound was heard as the weapon was activated. A red laser dot appeared on the woman's chest. "Kneel down," Derek commanded. "Hands behind your head. Now." The woman didn't move. She slowly reached her hand inside her coat. "This is not for drawing a gun." But then he took out a leather wallet, opened it, and inside was a heavy gold badge, unlike any local police badge. "I am a federal agent," she said, her voice as cold as steel. "And you are attacking my family." Derek smirked. "Yeah, the Federation. And I'm the King of England." But in that moment, for the first time since it all began, Derek's hand trembled slightly, because he began to realize that the woman standing in front of him wasn't the type to be afraid. And Oak Creek is about to witness a power shift that no one can stop. The atmosphere on Oak Creek Street became so heavy it was hard to breathe. Derek Thorne still pointed his taser at the woman in front of him. But for the first time, he wasn't sure what he was controlling. "The Federation," Derek sneered, trying to keep his voice firm. "This is my territory. Your badge is worthless on this sidewalk." The woman stared straight at him, without blinking. "I didn't come here to argue about jurisdiction," she said. "I came here to get you to release my child." Derek lowered his taser slightly, not out of obedience, but to try and regain the upper hand. "Nobody's giving me orders in Oak Creek," he said loudly, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "This girl is being held in custody, and if you don't back down—" He snatched the radio from his shoulder. "Dispatch. This is Thorne. I need immediate assistance. There's a suspect claiming to be federal, making threatening behavior. Urgent backup required." Derek ended the call and glanced at the woman, his eyes a mixture of defiance and smugness. "My men are on their way," he said. "In this town, we handle things ourselves." The woman didn't respond with an argument. She simply pulled out her phone, a small, black device. Unlike a typical phone, she turned her back half a step, just enough to speak into the phone, but still kept her eyes on Derek. "Command," she said, her voice low and clear. "This is Vance. I have a code red situation at the residence address. Hostile local law. There has been assault on a dependent and a weapon pointed at me. Requesting tactical team and DOJ representative." She paused for a moment. "Yes, send the forces." Derek chuckled, but the laugh was no longer genuine. "Are you putting on a show? This isn't Washington. This is Oak Creek." The woman turned and looked him straight in the eye. "I know exactly where I am," she said. "And I know what you are doing." Maya was still pressed against the police car. Her breathing was rapid, and her voice was trembling. "Mommy," she whispered. The woman looked at her child, her voice softening for just a brief moment. "Look at Mommy, my love. Don't move. Just breathe." Then her gaze turned cold again as she looked at Derek. "You've gone too far," she said. "And from the moment you draw your weapon, this is no longer your business." In the distance, the sound of car horns began to blare. Derek heard and smiled slightly, as if he had been given renewed strength. "Did you hear that? They're here." But at the same time, from another direction, a low, heavy sound, completely unfamiliar to Oak Creek, began to echo. That wasn't a horn. It was the sound of the fan blades. And in that moment, Derek Thorne began to understand that he might have called the right people, but the wrong forces. The first sirens blared from the end of the street. 2 Oak Creek patrol cars sped forward, their flashing red and green lights reflecting off the silent houses. Derek Thorne breathed a sigh of relief. His shoulders relaxed a little. "See?" he said loudly, as if declaring victory. "My men have arrived." The 2 officers stepped out of the car, their hands poised at their guns. They saw Derek, the woman standing opposite him, a child pinned to the car, and, instinctively, they chose to side with Derek. "Put down your weapons!" someone shouted at the woman. "Madam, lie down on the ground immediately." The woman didn't turn back. She didn't need to, because at that very moment, the sound of the propellers roared violently in the air. The wind lashed through the trees, sending leaves flying in a blinding mist. A black helicopter descended low, bearing no news logo or civilian paint scheme. The whole street shook. From the other end of the road, 3 black SUVs appeared almost simultaneously. No horns, no lights, just speed and cold precision. They swarmed into the street in formation, blocking all exits. The SUV doors swung open. Men and women in tactical armor stepped out. Their movements were clean, synchronized, and without a single superfluous gesture. On their chests, the white lettering was clearly visible: Secret Service. The voice rang out, deep, firm, and leaving no room for argument. "All of you, lay down your weapons. Now." The 2 Oak Creek police officers froze. They looked at the helicopter. They looked at the tactical formation. They looked at Derek. And for the first time, they understood that they were on the wrong side of power. The federal commander, a tall man with steely eyes, stepped forward. The rifle in his hand was pointed directly at Derek. "Officer Derek Thorne," he stated clearly, "you are being investigated for assaulting a minor and threatening a federal agent. Release the child." Derek turned to his 2 colleagues, expecting their support, but they stepped back. Their hands were raised. "Drop your weapons," the voice repeated. "Colder. Now." Derek's hands trembled. The taser slipped from his grasp and fell to the pavement. "Clasp your hands over your head. Kneel down." Derek followed suit. His knees touched the ground. In seconds, Derek was tackled, zip-tied, and searched. No one called him colleague. No one offered an explanation. He was merely a contained threat. The woman ran straight to Maya. "It's Mommy," she whispered, hugging her daughter tightly. Maya broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, her whole body trembling. A federal paramedic arrived immediately, examining Maya's bruised arm and small cuts on her hand. And Derek. He was roused to his feet and pushed toward a black SUV. As the car door slammed shut, Oak Creek Street, where silence had once been bought with money, finally had to face the truth. And this is not the end, because this siege was just the beginning of a legal storm that was about to sweep away everything Derek had ever thought was impenetrable. As the door of the black SUV slammed shut behind Derek Thorne, Oak Creek Street fell into a completely different kind of silence. It is no longer the feigned silence of white barriers. It is the silence of those who have just witnessed power being overturned. A gray sedan with its turn signals hidden in the grille slowly pulled in. The doors opened. Chief Harrison Grady stepped out. He was the type of man who handled problems with handshakes behind closed doors. But when he saw the helicopter, the tactical team, and one of his officers, zip-tied up by the Federals, his face turned pale. Grady quickly composed himself, putting on a diplomatic smile. He approached the woman. "Agent Vance, right?" "That's me, Chief Grady. I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding." The woman turned around. Her eyes were cold, devoid of any curiosity. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated. Grady raised both hands slightly, his voice softening. "Officer Thorne can be a bit tough sometimes, but he's experienced. We'll bring him back to the station and conduct an internal investigation. There's no need to make a big deal out of this." The woman stepped closer. No shouting, no insults, but the distance between them was close enough that Grady had to take a step back. "Your police," she said slowly, "attacked a 10-year-old child. They pointed weapons at me. They fabricated a reason for the arrest." Grady pursed his lips. "We handle our own people." "No," she interrupted. "He won't do that." The woman turned to the federal commander. "Record this as a federal crime scene." She turned to look at Grady. "I am invoking Section 18 of the U.S. Code, Part 242, disenfranchisement under the cloak of power." Grady was stunned. "He won't be going back to his station," she continued. "He'll be transferred straight to federal detention." Grady tried to remain calm. "You can't." "I can," she replied, "and I am doing it." The woman pointed toward Derek's patrol car. "I want to seal that entire vehicle immediately. Seize the dash cam. Take statements from every witness. Right now, before any evidence accidentally disappears." The federal commander nodded. "Understood." Grady looked around. Neighbors were filming. The media were starting to appear at the end of the street. Things had spiraled out of control. "We will cooperate," Grady said, his voice dry. "Very good," the woman replied. Then she turned away, no longer looking at him. "Get your men out of my house." Grady said nothing more. He turned and walked away like someone who had just lost something they thought would last forever. Meanwhile, Derek Thorne, locked inside the black SUV, understood for the first time that this wasn't a kidnapping that would be settled. This was the moment. The entire system began to crush him. The federal interrogation room was unlike any Derek had ever used. No smell of stale coffee. No bulletin boards. No colleagues' jokes behind the one-way glass. Nothing but stainless steel, cold, white lighting, and a suffocating silence. Derek sat alone for over 2 hours. No water. No phone. No one came to check on him. No one called him officer. The door opened. A man in a dark suit walked in, his demeanor calm, a slim file neatly placed on his desk. He wasn't in a hurry. "Derek Thorne," the man said without looking up. "Do you know why you're here?" I'm on duty," Derek said, his voice hoarse. "I have the right to call a union representative." The man looked up. His eyes held no anger, just weariness. "Your union has refused to represent you," he replied. "They say your behavior crossed all lines of professional protection." Derek was stunned. "I am Marcus Sterling," the man continued. Assistant Attorney General, I will be handling your case directly. Sterling opened the tablet and turned the screen towards Derek. Take a look. The video plays. The table is overturned. The lemonade pitcher shatters. A child is dragged away. The sound is chillingly clear. Go away. Your mother can't save you. Sterling froze the shot at the exact moment Maya was forced into the car. We have dash cams, he said. We have doorbell cameras for 3 houses. We have medical reports of bruises and cuts. We have witness statements. Derek stammered. She's resisting. No, Sterling interrupted. You're going against the law. Sterling listed each charge, his voice even and cold. Assaulting a minor, unlawful detention, threatening a federal agent, and the most serious charge, deprivation of citizenship under the guise of power. The minimum sentence is 15 years, Sterling said. No bail. Derek bowed his head. Things couldn't be this bad. Sterling stood up. The city of Oak Creek held an emergency meeting. You're fired for good reason. No pension, no benefits. The door closed, and the outside world began to burn. A video less than 3 minutes long was posted online. The title was simple. Police drag lemonade vendor girl. Watch until the end. In just a few hours, it spread across every platform. Millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. No one is arguing about context. No one is saying there isn't enough information. The video speaks for itself. Meanwhile, at Derek's house, a brick flew through the living room window. Attached to it was a note that read, "Justice for the child." His wife stood frozen amidst the shattered glass. The phone rang incessantly. Their son called. His voice panicked because his friends had turned their backs on him. Meanwhile, Derek, sitting alone in his cold cell, began to understand that this was more than just a failed arrest. This was the moment his entire life was collapsing at once. 6 months later, the Chicago sky was as gray and heavy as the atmosphere in the federal courtroom. Derek Thorne stood before the dock. No uniform, no badge, just his orange prison jumpsuit and his wrists shackled with cold steel. In the back seat, his wife wasn't there. His son wasn't there. His colleagues weren't there. There was only emptiness. The judge entered. Everyone in the room rose. Her voice rang out, slow and clear, devoid of any personal emotion. Defendant Derek Thorne has pleaded guilty to assaulting a minor and depriving a citizen of his civil rights under duress. The prosecution doesn't need to say much. The video says it all. The defense attorney tried to invoke 20 years of service, professional pressure, and a moment of error. The judge shook his head. Hitting a child in a police car isn't a mistake, she said. It's a choice. Then she turned to the woman sitting in the front row. Would you like to speak as a victim? The mother stood up. She didn't look directly at Derek immediately. She looked down at the little girl sitting beside her. The girl with the healed arm and the violin case resting neatly on her lap. That night, the mother said, her voice low but steady, my daughter asked me a question no child should ever ask. She turned to look at Derek. He asked me if he was a bad kid. Would selling lemonade to pay for violin lessons make him a criminal? The entire courtroom was silent. He didn't just hurt my child, she continued. He made him doubt his own existence. She paused for a moment. I have protected the most powerful people in this country, but I cannot accept that an innocent child should be afraid of the person tasked with protecting it. The mother sat down. The judge bowed his head as he read the verdict. Derek Thorne was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, permanently banned from owning weapons and from working in any security service. The hammer struck down. A dry, harsh sound echoed like the final door closing. 2 police officers approached and placed their hands on Derek's shoulders. He turned his head and looked around, but no one looked back. As Derek was led outside, the last thing he saw was the little girl's eyes. No hatred, no fear, just a serenity he had never experienced in his life. Outside the courthouse, the sun began to shine. The reporter held up a microphone and asked the mother how she felt. She replied succinctly, "Today is about justice. But justice is not just about punishment. It's about restoring what has been taken." Then, she looked down at her daughter. "Do you have anything to say?" The little girl shook her head. Instead, she opened the violin case. On the cold stone steps of the federal courthouse, the little girl placed the violin under her chin and played the bow. The first sound that rang out was thin but clear, a simple melody. Authentic. No words needed. The crowd fell silent. The cameras lowered. The music spread out like a gentle yet firm affirmation. "I'm still here. I haven't done anything wrong. I have the right to dream." Far away, behind the bars of a prison transport vehicle, Derek Thorne watched the city go by and realized something too late. The badge is not a sword. It is responsibility. And when he uses it to hurt a child, the world will not remain silent. It will rise up, surround, and take everything away.